Hey, what's going on YouTube? Dad with a bike, and today we're in my garage. It's a good day because it's raining and it's nasty outside. But today we're actually going to put on the Legend AXEO suspension that I got for the front of the bobber. So stick around and we are going to dive right in. All right, y'all, thanks for sticking around. So I want to preface this before we dive in because first and foremost, I'm not a mechanic. I am not a mechanic. I am just a dude that likes to work on his own bike. So when I do these things, I read and I read and I read some more. And anytime I do anything on the bobber or any bike that I've ever owned, I always make sure that I have the manual. So I've got my laptop, it has the manual downloaded. You can get the manual online. There's a handful of different places you can get it for 30 bucks. This is not the owner's manual, this is the service manual. It's super important that you get the service manual. The service manual is going to tell you all of the torque specifications that you need as you're going to do this, and it will also give you hints on how to do certain things like taking off your fork. I also have a set of instructions from Legend on, the fork itself, or on the suspension itself, the cartridges that are going to drop into the existing fork tubes. And so I've read that over and over and over. And I've also gotten online and watched a couple of videos that Legend has done on this specific suspension. They don't have anything on the bobber. They've only got it for like dynas and stuff like that, but should be similar enough. So I kind of have an idea on the process that I'm going to go through. So anytime you do something like this, it's super important that you over prepare, especially on something that's as important as your suspension. And if I get this wrong, I'll take the suspension to the shop and hand it to them and say, please undo my mess. But I think we're gonna be okay. So I'm gonna give you guys a walk around on how I have things set up, and then we'll jump right into taking this thing apart and getting that suspension installed. So, all right, y'all, so first of all, I've got this table. It's got everything set up on it that I need. I've got a bunch of stuff that's on here. I've got my instructions. My laptop is actually upstairs charging. I've got some tools. I know that I'm gonna have to get to a bolt that you get to from under the fork, and it requires a long hex. So I've got those. I've got some syringes that I'm going to use to actually put the oil back in. The oil that you have to put back in is only 2.5 ounces, and Legends provides you the oil. That's it right there. That's another shot of those beautiful cartridges that are going to slide in there. Something else that I'm going to do, I'm going to inspect my forks, and depending on the seals, I think I'm good, but I bought some a seal replacement kit anyway, and if they're a little yucky, I'm going to replace my seals. I got some little fork booties that I'm going to slap on, and I've got some suspension cleaners, so when I get this thing all taken apart, I'm going to douse this and get my suspension nice and clean. I also do some mountain biking stuff, and I don't have a fork tube clamp, but I have a mountain bike clamp, which actually will work just the same. So I lucked out. This thing actually on Amazon is probably only about 50 bucks. So if you're looking for an inexpensive clamp, if you're like me, you don't spend a whole bunch on tools and stuff like that, you always keep the bare minimum. This is a good thing to have because I can do my work on my suspension with this guy. I've already got the bike a little bit taken apart, so before I do any of this work on the suspension, right, all this crap has to come off. So the fairing's off, the front fender's off, the brake's about to come off, and all this stuff you can find in your service manual. The one thing that is going to be a challenge is this is taking off the front brake. You've got to finagle this front brake quite a bit to get it to come off. Now, once you get this front brake off, don't let it hang by the cables. Get some wire ties or get something where you can attach it, like in a bag or something, so that it sits without pulling or putting tension on the cables. You don't want to do that. That's no bueno. Then we're going to take off this front tire. I'm going to raise the whole bike up a little bit so that the suspension is suspended. We will undo the pinch bolts that are here and slide the suspension on out and start doing the work. So I'm gonna go away for a little while and get all this crap taken off and get the suspension pulled off the bike. So we'll be back shortly. Alrighty, y'all. So the first step in all this excitement was to get all this stuff off. So the wheel's out, the pinch bolt here is out, and if you've never taken the front wheel off the bobber, it's pretty simple. There's a pinch bolt that goes here. It comes out, or it loosens enough, and then you take a 16mm hex and walk over here to the bolt. Fits in there, and it just, you unscrew it, make sure that it's supported, and then it just slides right out. And when you slide out the bolt, the axle, be careful, do it nice and easy, because there's like spacers and washers and all kinds of stuff in here. You want to make sure that you don't lose and whatever. If they fall out, that's fine. Just keep track of them, so you can put them back in when you put the wheel back on. So now we're at a point where I have everything off, and I've got a decision that I'm going to make. I am going to either take the fork off and move it over to my stand and do the work there, or I'm going to use it here. So the first attempt, I'm going to like try to do this, you know, like a real mechanic, and take it out and put it in my stand, and we'll see what happens there. If it doesn't work, then, you know, I'll let y'all know, and I'll come back and do the other fork a little differently. So we'll be back in a minute. All right, y'all, so removing this fork, there's actually 3 bolts. There's the pinch bolt here, there's a pinch bolt here, those are both 6mm, and then you have your turn signals. So all those have to be loosened. You don't need to take them out or take them off, they just need to be loosened enough. And then you should have free play to be able to slowly, gently twist and pull the fork tube completely out of the triple tree. And it should just come out freely. Nice and easy, gentle, because we got to reuse this thing. So voila, fork is out. There she is. So next thing we're gonna do is throw it up in our little clamp, and we'll be back in a minute. Alrighty, y'all. So we have it in my little fork clamp, and I put a just a terry cloth around it so I don't jack it up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that oil pan, I'm going to slide it underneath. There's a bolt. Let's see if I can get you guys down there. That is up in there, right there. That needs to come out first. So the instructions that I've read so far, I'm trying to get you all situated so you can actually see everything. All right. So the instructions that I've read so far all say a couple of different things. If you read the Indian manual, it tells you to reach it from here, and it tells you to use a special tool. Come to find out, I don't think I need that special tool, because if I read the manual from Legend, they say undo this first, because this is a cartridge that's in here, and if I try to loosen this first, if I take the top cap off first, and then try to take this bolt out of the bottom, it'll just spin. So we're going to keep it under pressure, and we're going to take this bolt off first. And then when we do that, a bunch of oil should start to drain out, because the bolt itself, along with this spacer that's inside the lower fork tube, is what actually keeps the oil in. So when we remove this bolt, we want to keep the bolt, and we want to keep the copper washer that comes along with it. That's according to the instructions. So we're going to do that, come back in a minute, and we should start to see some oil draining. Alrighty, y'all, so we're going to work on this fork. This is actually the second fork. We already did the first fork, but I wanted to go through how I ended up actually having to disassemble the fork, because some of the stuff that I tried to do on the first fork didn't quite work right. Even when I followed the instructions, so I had to kind of work through this on my own, so maybe this will help you. I had to flip it in upside down. The bolt on the inside here that you're going to get to is an 8mm. It's not on there with very much force, and it's really easy to break loose. But the challenge is once it's broke loose, it just sits there and spins. And the reason it sits there and spins is because it's basically moving the whole cartridge around. And so in order for you to get it to sit so you can actually finish breaking it free, you've got to put pressure on it, okay? So what we have to do is we have to take it off the clamp. So what I have to do is I've got to get it off the clamp. I got to get it on the ground, and then I have to get pressure on it, and then it will start to spin free. So if I get this, I get some pressure on it. There it goes. And now it's free. Now we can get to it. Nice and loose. See? Nice and loose. And that's what you want. Okay? So now what we can do that it's nice and loose is we can put it back in the clamp, and there it goes. Yay! And there's that bolt we need. So we'll let that drain. And that's the trick. The trick is, in order for you to get this off, it's got to be under pressure, and you'll spin that bolt free. Otherwise, it's just going to sit there and spin, and it'll spin the cartridge inside, and you won't go anywhere. It took me a hot minute to figure that one out. So hopefully if you guys do this, that'll at least save you some pain and suffering. The rest of the stuff's pretty easy. What I found out with the first one was as soon as we undid this, it is no longer under spring. So I can take this top cap off, no worry. And then once I have this top cap off, I'll pull all the innards out, and then we'll have some of the pieces that we need, a couple of the bolts that we need. So let's do that real quick. 30 millimeter, and we're just gonna grab a hold of this guy and break him free. There. So now he's pretty much broke free. Yep, he's broke free. Now I'm going to swap out. And use my cordless drill to get him the rest of the way out. Okay, now we're going to take this top cap off, and I'm going to still keep a little bit of pressure on it just in case. Make sure I'm backing it out. There we go. Now that that's draining, I'm going to take this out. And along with this is going to come the piece we need, which is this silver piece right here. I'll take it off and I'll bring it to you and I'll show you. This is the little piece we need. This is like the cartridge retainer. So you'll need this so that when the new cartridge gets installed, it's going to be seated like this. And then the new cartridge is going to go in. This is important because this is actually what keeps the oil inside the fork. So you got to keep that. And we're going to clean this off. We're going to take the bolts and the lower piece that we need. Squirt it with some suspension cleaner. And then just clean them off. Like I said earlier, depending on how I edit this, of course, that suspension cleaner is a lifesaver. It's cheap. It's like 15 bucks. You could use, brake cleaner, engine cleaner, and if you need to. But I like purpose-built stuff. So There we go. These are nice and clean. Okay, set those off to the side. We're going to run this tube up and down a couple times. Get all that oil out. It's going to take a bit because it'll have to drip. But while it's doing that, I'm also going to take this suspension cleaner and I'm going to squirt some down inside. So it really cleans it out, and you'll probably see it kind of drip out the bottom, which is fine. Actually, no, I'm going to take this off and do it this way. Yeah! Get some. That's what we want. This stuff dries, so it doesn't stay wet, so it's okay. And it's safe for the seals, so you're not going to mess your seals up. And I'm not going to replace the seals because they're good, they're doing their job. I can see them right here. I can see that they're keeping all the oil where it should be, so those things are doing their job. So we're not going to replace the seals yet. What I am going to do is I'm going to take my air compressor and I'm going to blow some air down in there. What I'm trying to do is just finish drying it out, blow anything down the bottom out that can be, and that's it. Now if you don't have an air compressor, don't worry about it, it's not that big a deal, it's just something I wanted to do to make sure they were extra clean. Okay, so now what we're able to do is install the fork. Now, or install the cartridge. Now, you gotta set your preload first. So follow the instructions for the preload, but it's really simple to do. You undo this bolt and you'll twist it. So this comes preset factory 0, which is good up to 200 pounds. I am, and my gear are over 200 pounds, so I will set this to a 1. And the way that you do that is very simple. I'm gonna back this bolt all the way out because I'm going to put Loctite on it once I get it set. And blue Loctite, not red Loctite. So, got that. So, I'm going to give this thing a couple of good. Now when you're done, what you're going to end up doing is it is going to, if you change this at all, you notice you can kind of compress the fork down some, and you can move it. But it's going to go down to where there's a flat spot. Follow the instructions. They are very, very clear on how to set the preload on this. So just follow those instructions. We'll be back in a second. I'm going to go put some blue Loctite on this and get this set up, and then we're going to reassemble this fork. Alrighty, so now we're ready to reassemble this fork, and this is ridiculously easy. Right, so you're going to drop this cap in, this is going to slide into the cap at the bottom, and then you're going to come through the bottom and you're going to put this screw right back in where you got it. And it is that simple. So alrighty, so now we're going to take some blue Loctite and we're going to put it on. This is the lower bolt that goes in the bottom of the fork. Put some blue Loctite, doesn't have to do you. And then we'll start re-threading him. Catch, and he's caught right there. So that's done. He's got to be tightened to 15 foot-pound. Checking. That's why it's good to have these instructions. Yeah. So he is tightened to 15 foot-pounds. When we finally tighten the top cap, he is tightened to 25 foot-pounds based on the spec sheet. So that's what we're going to do. Now getting the lower bolt set correctly is super important, primarily because this, when you start to put oil in, that being seated properly and that being tightened properly is what keeps the oil in the fork. So that's what we need to do. So to do that, we're going to spin this guy around. Now you can use the triple tree probably for this stuff if you wanted to, if you don't have one of these little clamps. And there we go, 15 foot-pounds. Back around. And I'm going to put this at an angle because now we're going to put the oil in. Only 2.5 ounces have to go into this, so not a whole lot. And the reason why I have it canted at an angle is because The reason why I have it canted at an angle is because when I start pouring the oil, I'm actually going to pour it on the cartridge tube itself and let it slowly drip. You have to do this really slow. It's tedious, but the slower you do it, the better it is. And then you're going to pour some oil, and every once in a while you're going to stop, and you're going to take the fork tube and you're going to work it up and down. Okay. I use a syringe. 2.5 ounces is about 74 milliliters. So I'll fill this up to 74 milliliters, and I'll use this syringe. It helps me keep a controlled flow, and I won't overspray, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to put oil in here, and that'll be that. And then spin the top back on, torque it to spec, and we'll be done with those forks. So be back in a bit. All right, y'all. So we have this all back together. So how do I know that it's working? Well, there's no oil came out of the bottom, no oil is leaking. It's all in here. It compresses nicely, so I've taken it off and I've compressed it. The top cap needs to be torqued to 25 foot-pounds. Now the original top cap, if you know, on the innards that you pulled out of the stock cartridge, you're not going to use that top cap again. These come with their own top cap. It's like part of the cartridge itself. And what I'm finding is, because I did a bunch of stuff with this, I got oil on it and stuff, keeping it in this vise and being able to torque it is almost impossible. So what we're going to do instead is we're actually going to use the triple tree instead. So I'll take this, feed it up through front side of the triple tree, and then we'll just do it once I get it fed through. Then I'll torque it this way. So by the time we come back, I'll have it all torqued, and then we'll have it set aside. But that's just a bit of a tip if you're having a challenge with a vise or whatever the case may be. The triple tree works really good as a vise. So just a tip. Alrighty, you all. So we've got the this fork all done. It's slid all the way back into the triple tree. It's not tightened down yet. I'll do that in a little bit. But one of the things I did want to mention is when you do slide this back in, the manual says make sure that this is flush. Okay, so you want to make sure that these, the top of the fork bolt, not this top, but the actual top right there. So let me see if I can get you closer. So not this, but this is even with the triple tree. So that's what the manual says, so that's what we did. So now we're gonna go tackle the other fork, and we'll jump right into that. All right, everybody. forks are back on. Now I'm just tightening them up, and essentially what I am going to be doing is the triple tree clamps. Those are 18 foot-pound, so I'll use my trusty torque wrench, set that to 18 foot-pound. And then, you know, I'm going to throw the wheel back on. Everything's going to go back on. I think before I do, you know, brakes and that kind of stuff, when I put the wheel on, probably give it a little bit of a test or whatnot, just make sure it's all good before I go any further. But I think it should be. So anyway, so by the time we come back, I'll have wheel back on. So we'll be back in a minute. Alrighty, y'all, so the wheel's on, front wheel's on. So now I gotta torque it. So this is 50, what is it? 50, yeah. So this is 52, the axle's 52, and the pinch bolt is 18. So you'll do the axle first, and then the pinch bolt. So 52, 52. Oh, I have the hex on there. Okay, that's 52. And then 18 for the pinch bolt. So easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then what we'll do is we'll lower it, and then they want you to cycle through the suspension, which is great because it'll help us double check our suspension. So when we get back, that's what we'll do. Alrighty, moment of truth. Our suspension either drops on us or it's amazing. So we'll cycle through the suspension real quick. Oh my goodness. Oh, that is, look at that, is so much better. That is, look at that. And if I were to do that on the original suspension, it just goes bottoms out with my weight, my force. Holy crap. This is gonna be amazing, I think. All right, so now I know suspension doesn't suck. And I got the right travel on both sides. We're solid. Alrighty, y'all, well, we're done. I'm not gonna bore you with me slapping the rest of this stuff on because it's just, you know, stuff. It's not the point of the video. But we got Legend's suspension installed. Our suspension test said it's a whole hell of a lot better than the original ones. So I'm excited to get this thing out and really give it a test. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to spend some time putting this, editing all this stuff together because there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of mishaps that I'm going to try and make sure that I edit out. So I'm only showing you, you know, the real, like, how to. The net of it is, though, is that these Legend suspensions are super easy to install. Like, once I figured out the issues with like how to actually undo the bolts, that they needed to be compressed, or the suspension needed to be compressed when I undid the, once I got past that, everything else was wicked simple. So I can't say how easy enough this is. It is very simple to get in there and do it. Be meticulous, use a manual, and follow the instructions. And hopefully this video helps you if you decide to do it. So anyway, I'm signing off. I hope you all appreciated this. Do me a favor, hit that like, subscribe, because I put these together and this is a lot of effort for me to do. I took so many different takes on so many different things. So I really do hope you all appreciate it. At any rate, y'all have a good one. Y'all be safe, and peace.